Hey guys, it's Olivie Blake, and this is me not writing. So happy 2022, first of all. I have been absent for a while because I had a terrible outbreak of hives in December that lasted several weeks and was all over my face. And, you know, I am a victim to fragile mortal weakness as much as anyone, so did not really want to appear on camera. I don't really want to be on camera now either. You can probably also tell that as well because we were recently exposed to COVID. I'm not feeling great and Mr. Blake has just tested positive. Also, our child, he's like potentially going through a sleep regression and or is teething. Or has a little bit of a cold, or I don't know what. I mean, motherhood is crazy. I've talked a lot about how anxiety is a chronic condition in the sense that, you know, like chronic pain, you can't really cure it. You can just sort of deal with it as things come up and you try to manage it as much as you can. And motherhood is much the same, where I constantly feel just like this overwhelming sense of inadequacy and do not know what I'm doing. So it's been very stressful. Little boy is learning to crawl and to pull himself up. He's standing up now, not very well. He won't believe you if you tell him that he doesn't know how to stand on his own. So we transitioned very quickly from, oh my God, now if you set him down, who knows where he'll be in like 30 seconds. So we've reached the stage where you cannot turn around anymore, which is perfect because I'm also not sleeping. It's a great time to not be at peak brain. The Atlas Paradox has a release date, which is October 25th of this year. I have 3 books coming out this year, 2 as Olivie. So the Atlas 6 Tour Edition is coming out in March. Then My Mechanical Romance under my Alexine Farrell Fulmuth byline is coming out May 31st, which is technically a summer release. And then my fall release, just in time for the season of the macabre, is the Atlas Paradox. So that's a very, very compressed production schedule, which probably means nothing to you. But to me, it just means I won't be getting any more sleep anytime soon. You know, it's hard because obviously I want to talk about it. I think the only things I will say so far is that I think that it is a very thinky book. Same with the first book. I wouldn't say it's any different. Except that the characters are, they're melting down a little bit more. They're each having their own sort of existential crisis. But at the same time, I would say that this book is funnier than the last book, perhaps because I think that it is funny to watch a human melt down. But, okay, so I have a list of things I wanted to talk about. I have personal update, hives, sleep, crawling, COVID. Yeah. Oh, also welcome to my new office. So this is another funny thing. We have moved, and the office needs a lot of work. I should probably stop like twisting around in this chair. I'm sure that's annoying to you. Also, I'm learning which times of day I can film, and this is not a great one. So note to self. The other thing is that I'm probably allergic to something that's in my yard, and my office is in the yard. So, you know, balance is king. The tour pre-order, I did want to talk about. People keep asking me, I assume people are going to keep asking me about the differences between the tour edition and the self-published edition. I hope that it makes sense to you that I obviously can't just tell you what the differences are. I mean, we're talking about at least 10,000 additional words, but they're really blended throughout the book. So you're looking at it's a longer book. It has more scenes. And then I have mentioned that there are 2 scenes that are pretty pivotal that have been just completely reconstructed. So if you've read the self-published edition and you pick up the sequel, there are going to be moments where you're like, that's not how I remember it, because that scene has been changed. I can sort of already see the Goodreads reviews that are like, this is confusing because you know, it's a lot to explain what has happened in the last couple of years. I don't think it would confuse you for long. I think you would be confused and kind of just be like, whatever, and move past it. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Obviously, I think that the new version is a better version. With my self-published stuff, I really didn't want I really wanted to keep the prices of my paperbacks very low. I was never trying to make a living off of my self-published work. I was just trying to make it available to as many people as possible because I had, all these stories I felt like telling. I felt like this was a good way to do it. It was an easy way for me to put stories out in the world and to just try to keep it below a certain threshold so that people who wanted to read it could read it. Obviously, the Atlas 6 did something crazy and kind of unpredictable, and from the time that the Atlas 6 started getting traction, I kept thinking there are scenes that I wish I could have improved, things that like I would have added more meat to certain storylines if I hadn't been trying to keep my word count and page count low so that the printing cost wouldn't be so high. It was my like mathematical equation was printing costs plus whatever Amazon is going to take, and then I got whatever was left over in order to keep it under $10 US, which, spoiler, was almost nothing. But, like I said, the important thing for me was to make it available. I never thought I was going to do big numbers. I don't know. So having the opportunity to have a publisher and to now be able to say like this storyline needed more. I wanted to add more details to this scene and I just didn't have the space to do it before. Now I do. So this version, it's better. It's what I wanted the book to be if I'd had more resources, which now I have those resources and I put them to good use, I hope. I don't think there is any possibility that you'll be like, this is worse. It really is just more. That was a long ramble. But, I'm just, there are sort of people popping up in my inbox being like, can you tell me personally what's different? And the thing is, I understand why you want to know what's different, but I'm not going to tell you that before the Tor edition has come out. Like that doesn't make sense, right? The Tor edition has not been read by the majority of people, so I'm not going to discuss it now. That might change in the future. It's not like I'm trying to withhold information from you, or that I want to, force you to read this version. It's that I'm not going to talk about a book that hasn't been read yet. I'm just not in the interest of spoiling my own work, but maybe in another time we'll talk about it. The UK edition, there's going to be quite a lot of special editions in the UK. A lot of them are signed, so just keep an eye out for that. I am signing a lot of things. So those will be available for you soon. Also, there are many foreign editions that I'm basically the last to hear about foreign editions and translations and stuff like that. So I can't tell you. There's, again, lots of people popping up to be like, is it going to be in my country or my language? And the answer is truly, I don't know. I think so. No one has confirmed for me yet. So once I have those confirmations, I will try to give them to you. It's Tor's decision, not mine. Atlas Paradox release date, we talked about it. And okay, the Atlas 6 is being adapted for TV. And this is obviously huge in a way that's like, it's almost hard to talk about because it's so, to me, so unlikely. It doesn't even feel real. I actually, so let me back up. The Atlas 6 is being adapted for TV by Bright Star, a UK-based production company, and Amazon Studios, so it will be on Prime Video. And here's what I will tell you about this process. It was insane because I wrote the Atlas Paradox in 4 weeks, and during 2 of those weeks, I was also taking meetings with production companies and studios and stuff talking about the adaptation because it did come down to essentially an auction. During that time, I got presented with a lot of different ideas about how the TV show could look or feel. So I got to see a lot of people's opinions about what they wanted, how they wanted to see it adapted. And I will tell you right now that I could have gone through this process blind and I still would have chosen the same people because their vision for what this could be as a TV show is exactly what I would want to watch. It's what I was trying to, communicate through the book. What do I know about it? I do not know when we were casting. I'm not necessarily looking for like famous actors, like people, I don't have like specific celebrity actors in mind for the different characters except for one, because I think this is a great opportunity to try to find an untapped Cuban actor or Iranian actor. This is the opportunity, I think, to actually mine the world for talent rather than just trying to identify someone who might have the look who's been on a show before. I don't know why I'm going into it. That I'm just having so many thoughts. Like, it's easiest for me to understand what's happening in terms of like the work. like the work that needs to be done. Right now, I'm really thinking about how are we going to adapt this creatively? What kind of writers do I want working on it? I'm an executive producer, but I'm not the showrunner. So the person who's actually going to write the pilot is not me. So for right now, it's really exciting to me to be able to figure out how are we going to create diversity in the writer's room? I want to find queer writers and writers of color. Again, don't send me your stuff because I am not hiring. That's not my job right now. My job basically is to figure out how to take this book and turn it into a show in a very like high level way. That's just like literally what do I want it to look and feel like. My job has limits. So yeah. And also as far as optioning for TV, essentially what's happening in the next year and a half is that they're going to write a pilot and find the people to be involved, and then we'll move forward from there. So we're actually not that close in the process of it being on screen yet. Someone asked how my family and friends feel about it. My family and friends are not that interested in what I do / are not totally aware of what I do. A lot of them did not find out until like a friend who does pay attention to what I do on social media posted it. And then I got a flood of being like, wait, what have you been doing for the last 5 years? So surprise to those people. My close family, they're happy about it. I think that there's a lot of sort of dumbstruck disbelief in the sense that for many years, no one has known what I've been doing. They're basically every holiday, every vacation, I've kind of snuck away to write, and people are like, what's she doing? And, you know, they hear like, oh yeah, she's writing, but that doesn't mean anything to them because this is a very weird thing as far as a career choice and trying to make this happen. And now that it's happening, the only person who's not surprised is Mr. Blake. And I swear, all I ever wanted, you've heard me say this many times if you've watched this for a long time, all that I have ever wanted is a career in publishing. Just the ability, the privilege really, to continue to write books and to make a living that way. TV adaptation, like trilogy deal, none of that ever crossed my mind. I just wanted to be able to write books and to sort of sustain myself that way, to, you know, put a roof over our heads with the stories I wanted to tell. So this happening, beyond my imagination, beyond anything I ever thought. It's such a lightning bolt experience that I don't know that I've actually processed it. I really take everything each day like, what do I need to do? What's my job? I don't know if that makes any sense. I've been talking for ages too. I wanted to scroll through my Tumblr inbox. So basically all I want to say is I'm incredibly grateful. It's just beyond anything. I never want to get ahead of myself, so I don't want to, you know, television, film, it's notoriously fickle. It's dependent on a lot of things. So I'm tempering my excitement for now. I am focusing on the job, which for me is just how do we translate this book to the screen? I know that I've chosen great people to work with. My producers are incredibly smart. We had the most amazing conversation about the books. Like, I just feel like I have exactly the right collaborators. All the Amazon executives that I've met with are female, which was really exciting for the industry. And there was a really stark contrast between the people I met with in terms of the not just creative, but professional dynamic. And so being able to meet with a room full of female studio executives is like, you can really feel the difference. Just a lot of respect for my creativity, my time. It's amazing. Anyway, sorry. I'm sure all of that is boring. Like, you probably clicked on this if you care at all to hear about something much more exciting than the fact that I get to sit in a room with women who understand that they can't call me after 6 p.m. But like, trust me, it's important. Okay, let's see. What do we have? When you're writing a book, do you have an ending point in mind of where you want the plot and the characters to end up? No, I don't. I am what's called a reformed pantser. I used to just completely fly by the seat of my pants, and then I realized that that was not a good way to pace a book, and so now I work with a living outline. This is something I've talked about before. I can leave that as a link for you. But essentially at this point, I write pretty blindly. I would say up to about 40, maybe 50% of the manuscript. And then at that point, I stop and take stock of where it's going, figure out the ending, and then keep writing. So with the Alice Paradox, like I said, I wrote it in 4 weeks total. For the first 2 weeks, I had no idea where anything was going. Then I stopped, thought about it, reconfigured, wrote out an outline I kept track of like which character points of view had already taken place and who we hadn't heard as much from, what I needed to weave back in through the beginning in order to make the end make sense. And then I wrote to the end. But I've said this many times also, that first revision is very important to me. I don't consider a first draft to be a complete manuscript. I don't consider that to be the book. I have to go through at least one revision process to go through and make sure that the ending that I've written has been supported by the beginning and the middle. So yeah, reformed pantsing. What are my zodiac signs? I'm an Aquarius sun. I don't know why. Sometimes my son's placements have mixed in with me. I don't have any water placements, which I suppose is why I'm cerebral more than emotional most of the time. But my baby does have one that we have similar signs, but he has a Pisces moon, which I don't have. I have a Sagittarius moon and Virgo rising. Okay, people who are excited, this is very nice. It is very kind. There is a lot of kind things. Do I accept suggestions for Spell? Spell is on hiatus right now because I just don't have time for anything. I don't have time to do the discussion posts. I barely have time to facilitate them, much less actually contribute to them. So I've hit pause on that. Someone wanted to ask, how much experience do I have in film and TV? Is it daunting to be an executive producer? Is it something I feel prepared for? This is probably the Virgo in me, but I'm not really looking at it as like the job title and more like, what do I actually need to do? So the first thing I have to do, not the first thing, but one of my major responsibilities is what's called breaking the season, which is determining which events in the book are going to go into each episode. So rather than thinking about how am I going to be an executive producer, I'm thinking about what is that like, what's that one task? I tend to just break everything down into manageable tasks. That's how I approach everything, with like basically a checklist. So, when I look at it that way, I feel like, of course, I'm the person who should do that job. I know the book better than anyone. And the idea of someone else doing that job is like almost upsetting, So do I feel overwhelmed? Only when I like step back and try to look at the whole forest. I can't do that. That's too overwhelming. My whole brain goes blank. Like when someone's like, do you realize what you've done with this book? No, I can't look at it that way. I can't think about it. My brain will break. I can only look at like the one tree, the one task I have to do. But thank you. It's a good question. I want to write my own novel. How do you keep yourself motivated and focused during writing? So this is something I've answered before, but it's one that I have a hard time with because, everybody's got their like writing personality, and my personality it's not hard for me to focus. To be honest, I have to question when people have a really hard time focusing on writing, like why you're doing it. Because if you're not enjoying it, then it's not like writing is an easy thing to do. For 5+ years, I was just kind of throwing grains of sand into an enormous cavernous void, that's just like, it's not like, with creative careers, it's not like other careers where there are rungs on a ladder and you can climb and you know where you're going, you know what you have to do in order to get there. Creative careers are just blind gambles, and like the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, right? As with everything. And not everybody has the privilege to be able to take those risks. I did. It's still, I'm not processing well. I think that certainly it can be very overwhelming to try to sit down at an empty page and imagine that now you have to dump the whole book there. No, focus on, you just have to you're telling a story to yourself. You just have to get to a certain point. What's the next event that happens? What's the next emotional beat that happens? You're not trying to put the whole book all at once, because yes, that's such an enormous undertaking that I'm sure it would be difficult focus because it would just be overwhelming. And it would be hard to stay motivated thinking I have to create, it's not like you're doing a whole painting all at once. You have to do the underpainting. You have to do the layers and the textures. That is a process. It doesn't happen with one draft. And you have the time and the space to make a book what you want it to be. So I always recommend, don't treat your rough draft like a book. A book is a compilation of all the work that you put into it. It is my guess that anxiety, the creative anxiety of this thing has to be perfect, or it has to be excellent, it has to be exactly as I imagine it in my head. It would be really hard to push through that to the point where you might be easily distracted or easily overwhelmed. And so, break it down into more manageable pieces. But if it's like you literally do not enjoy sitting down and working on your manuscript, change projects, do something else. Don't waste time, I can tell you now, with no sleep and a child who 2 weeks ago wasn't crawling at all and now he's moving all over my house, time is the one thing you cannot get back. You cannot waste it. Do not waste it on the sense that you're just spinning your wheels, okay? If something, so on the one hand, if you can't focus because it's overwhelming or, you just feel like you have so much to tell, break it down into smaller, manageable pieces. What can you do that day to get yourself closer to getting the story on the page? You're just telling the story to yourself. Try to take some pressure off. But if it's like, I can't focus because there's so many other things I would rather be doing, do those things, write shorter things. You don't have to write a novel. Start small, get practice. I think this is someone who's thinking about writing their first novel. You have to practice ending a manuscript. It's going to feel really overwhelming at first, but someone asked me, how was writing the Atlas Paradox for me? And the thing is that I've lost track of how many manuscripts I've written up to this point. It might be like my 20th or more manuscript. At this point, I have a lot of practice with how a book should be written, just in terms of doing the actual work. I'm not saying I'm like an expert at writing books, but at this point, I don't have to get myself in the mind frame to write. I just have done it so many times. And so, getting to that point is a matter of practice. Yes, inspiration is great. Creativity is great. That sense of a flame that people really romanticize the process of writing, that it's like this fire in you and you write all night, and it's very the scene with Jo in Little Women where she just has to get this story out of her. Sometimes it is like that. But sometimes it's, sitting here and thinking, I just have to get this out. I just have to move forward in this scene, just get some skeletal version of the scene so that I can move on to the next point, and I can always come back to it if it's not perfect. If it's not, it'll never be perfect. But if it's not what I wanted, I can always fix it. I am still the master of this work, and I can make it better. Yeah. So anyway, this has been a lot. I gotta end here. I no longer think this is going to be weekly because I just can't promise weekly, but I'm just gonna show up when I can, and hopefully that is still meaningful or useful to you. I have a feeling I talked really fast. I'm feeling a little bit down on myself in general, maybe I can't say the right thing. So, feel free to let me know if I had so many personal crises in my inbox that I tried to deal with as best I could, despite the just struggling with my allergies. So moving forward, if you have any more crises, feel free to let me know and I will address them. I'm here for you. There was a lot there. Wow. Wow. This has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing, and I'll see you. I gotta change this outro. Well, this has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing, and I'll see you next time.